It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Tales of the Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the official titles and synopsis from the episodes of Season 1, so the first 6 episodes of the series. We don't know if there's going to be more seasons to come, but that's obviously going to depend a lot on the reception and the ratings of the show when it airs in a few weeks. But with that said, stay tuned. We'll be right back to break it all down. Alright, as always, before we dive into it, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that said, let's dive right into it. So I'm actually using Walking Dead Fandom's website for this, but there's other articles that talk about this as well. But if we go take a look at the titles first, we can see something very interesting. Most of these titles are actually names of the characters. So that's an interesting approach, to have the titles of these episodes be the name of the characters. Not all of them are like this. For example, the first one is called Evie Joe, which is obviously the episode surrounding the characters of Joe, who's going to be portrayed by Terry Crews, and Evie, who's going to be portrayed by Olivia Munn. If we go take a look at the description of this particular episode, in a road trip story, a reclusive prepper abandons his bunker in search of a female prepper from his past. Along the way, he meets an unlikely ally, who is his polar opposite. They team up in an effort to find their lost loved ones. So, based on this, we can make a prediction early on to say that this is an episode where Joe's character, portrayed by Terry Crews, is someone who's been in a bunker for a little bit of time, and obviously based on the trailer, we know that he's the type of character that had a sense that this was coming, the apocalypse was coming, so he was prepping for it, hence the name Prepper. But he leaves his bunker to go search for another female prepper from his past. He stumbles upon an unlikely ally. Obviously that would be Evie, who's going to be portrayed by Olivia Munn. They're polar opposites, which makes sense because in the trailer, we do have a little bit of back and forth with the two of them, who have completely different mindsets, so that makes sense. They team up in an effort to find their lost loved ones. The next episode is called Blair Gina. Now, obviously, we talked a lot about the two of them based on the trailer of Season 1 of Tales of the Walking Dead, but when we read the description, we'll know a little bit more about their story. The synopsis reads, in a fast-paced, reality-twisting, body-action heist, a disgruntled receptionist and her overbearing boss are trapped together as the city of Atlanta collapses under the Walker apocalypse, forcing them to work together in order to escape the city. So, based on the trailer, we did know that Gina and Blair, who are going to be portrayed by Gina Bell and Parker Posey, will be in Atlanta in the early days of the outbreak. They talk a lot about how the CDC is next door and how if anything was wrong, they would be all over it. They're right next to the CDC. They're trapped in the city of Atlanta when the apocalypse begins. We did even see them near the Atlanta City Center, which is pretty close to what we saw in Season 1 of the original show as well. The other thing, this could be a stretch, but they talk about a heist in the description, so I wonder if that's the same heist that ends with one of the robbers shooting the police officer that was coming after them, that police officer obviously being Rick Grimes. Again, I could be a little off here, it could be a stretch, but if that's the direction they go, that's awesome. But this does obviously confirm that the second episode is gonna be with Blair and Gina, and we're gonna go back to the early days of the apocalypse and kind of see how Blair and Gina survived the first days of the outbreak. Because of the trailer, we know both of them die. It's gonna be pretty anticlimactic because we know what the story is gonna be, but they might throw in a few twists and turns that we don't expect. The next episode is called D, and the synopsis reads, a mother evolves after she and her daughter escape violence and take refuge on a vintage steamboat. The peaceful ambience deteriorates when a coup attempt forces the mother to revisit her violent past in order to protect her child. Obviously, this is the episode that's Alpha's backstory. So the mother in this description is Alpha, played by Samantha Morton, and the daughter is obviously a young Lydia, portrayed by Scarlett Bloom. Now, when it comes to the title, if you missed it, D is actually Alpha's real name. So Samantha Morton is going to play D. D is Alpha's real name. The other thing I want to mention is that the other character that's going to be in this episode is Alpha's neighbor, whose name is Brooke, portrayed by Lauren Glazier. Now, when it comes to the description, it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways because it connects to the backstory that we already saw in that flashback episode in The Walking Dead's original show, where we saw Alpha and Lydia taking refuge in the bunkers. There are a few very interesting things in this description. The first is that there's a coup attempt. So that's interesting. I mean, obviously, if we're seeing the early days of the outbreak, something like that makes sense. So that's definitely cool. Not something that I expected to see, but I'm definitely welcoming this story. I hope that it's not a quick thing. I hope they spend a little bit of time on that because that's actually a very interesting story on its own. But the other thing that's interesting is how this forces Alpha to revisit her past, her violent past. And what is her violent past? You know what I mean? Like, the only violent past that we know from Alpha is the fact that she killed her husband. So what more could there be? You know what I mean? So I'm definitely intrigued. The next episode is called Amy, Dr. Everett. Another episode title where the character's name is in the title. But we did learn a little bit about who Dr. Everett is based on the trailer. He's obviously a doctor or scientist that's studying the walkers, the migration plans of the walkers, their behaviors and stuff like that. Now, I'm predicting that this is the episode where we see the 35-year time jump, but I could be wrong about that. I mean, there's a possibility that it could be another episode as well, but this is my first prediction as far as which episode could be that 35-year time jump episode. But the description of this episode reads, in a nature documentary set in the dead sector, a naturalist who studies walkers encounters a spirited settler, and unlikely respect is forged between the two as the settler tries to argue in favor of people taking back the land from the dead. So it looks like there's two polar opposite opinions. One that thinks that the people or mankind should take over, and another that thinks that the land belongs to the dead now and that they should have it. So that's definitely interesting. It does, in my opinion, line up a lot with what a 35-year time jump society, or not even society, but a story 35 years down the line might look like. Obviously, Poppy Lou is going to portray Amy and Anthony Edwards is going to portray Dr. Everett. The next episode is called Daven. The synopsis of this episode reads, in a Norrish, fractured memory thriller, a young stranger suddenly wakes up in a dangerous foreign town with no memory of how he got there. He must piece together fragments of his broken mind to uncover why the townspeople accuse him of murder. This is obviously the story that we saw in the trailer where Daven, portrayed by Jesse Usher, is confronted by a mob or a cult and they're trying to burn him alive or something like that. So obviously this description reveals to us that they're accusing him of murder and he has to discover what he did and why he's in this strange place and whether he is a murderer or not. Now, if you just read the description, it doesn't sound like a Walking Dead episode description. So that's interesting. I mean, obviously there are walkers in the episode because we did see them in the trailer with Daven, so we know that it's not like a completely separate thing. There are walkers, it's still the same universe, but it's funny that the description doesn't sound like The Walking Dead like whatsoever. And then the next episode, the season 1 finale, Season 1, Episode 6 is called La Donna. Very interesting title, and the description reads, a haunting tale of an apocalypse traumatized couple who may or may not be tormented by a haunted house. Frightening memories coupled with inexplicable phenomena in the house takes a toll on the couple's psyche and their relationship. Obviously, this is the episode with Danielle Pineda as Idalia and Danny Ramirez as Eric, who we saw in the trailer. This description makes it seem like we're gonna have ghost story mixed in with a zombie story, so I don't know how that's gonna turn out. I mean, it might be good, but it might be super cringe and super underwhelming. Not much more to say about this episode, which is the season 1 finale. I hope they go out with a bang on this episode. The synopsis definitely makes it seem like it's gonna be super interesting, but like I said, there's a chance that it might not really work. But this is the only episode where the title of the episode is not the name of any character. Unless Idalia is also called La Donna, or maybe that's just the name of the ghost. Anyway, that's all I had to say about the titles and descriptions of these episodes for Season 1 of Tales of the Walking Dead. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.